So, I have been in a relationship with the God of the Bible on and off all of my life. I was raised in a home where the biblical God was talked about as a natural part of our existence. Then I started school and I really wanted to fit in, so I eventually started to live a double life, being a Christian at home and in my language and actions, not very Christian at school. It was all fueled by my parents not having a stable relationship and home life falling apart. I didn't have the inner strength to feel insecure at school as well, but I was. I reckon that if a child feels unsafe or insecure about home life, it will seep into every other part of their life. But at 12, when I got really angry one time, and I really had developed anger issues over the years, but at that time I felt something in my heart. It was a conviction that this wasn't a good way to handle life. I started thinking about how my parents, though they themselves hadn't fully been able to live up to their words about following the love principles, but still they had told me and read to me about the God of the Bible, how he was loving and kind, gentle and unselfish, and I felt in my heart that I wanted to become like that. So from that point on, I started to read the Bible for myself. I started talking to God about my feelings, about what I was going through, and I started to experience an inner strength and integrity that I had never felt before. But in school, it was still difficult not to be a part of the general lifestyle, though I stopped swearing and being as cocky. But in high school, things got worse though. The peer pressure got higher and teenage insecurity hit hard. And the longing to be loved and appreciated by boys and liked by your girlfriends, it really hit hard. But as time passed, our class started to behave really bad during lectures. Eventually, it basically became a monkey house without any respect for authority. With the pressure of good grades, my anger issues blossomed again. I was so angry with most of my classmates, and I made that very clear verbally. In the final year, I was so tired I started skipping some classes, studying at home, coming in for exams, and just not having it. I had daily headaches, and I started to develop depression. At the same time, home life was emotionally really tough. My parents had separated long ago, but with adulthood creeping upon me, I started getting a sense of responsibility for my family. I started seeing that there was not a good guy versus a bad guy. Everyone was just trying to cope with their own inability and scars. So I started trying to fix those emotional scars within the family. There is much to say about how my childhood has affected me, but in short, it left me unable to cope with normal life. I experienced much love and joy, but the constant stressors, some specific traumatic events, and together with my sensitive personality, it all led me to depression, burnout, anxiety, panic attacks, binge eating disorder, strong suicidal thoughts, PTSD, and complex PTSD. So where was God in all this, you might ask? During all these years of struggle, I had moments where I strongly felt that God was holding me, but then I had times where I didn't feel His presence at all. But something started to change in the end of 2021. By the grace of God, I had gotten married to a good man who was learning to cope with me, and as time passed, we got a baby. So in the end of 2021, I had been taking care of our baby boy to the point that I physically was unable to stand on my legs. For months, I had been sleeping sporadically, about 4 to 5 hours every 24 hours, and for long periods waking up every 20 minutes to feed our son. He was just satisfied with me at the time, and my husband was working, so I took it on to endure. I managed 6 months, then my body broke down. Constant prayer and an incredible decisiveness not to fall into postpartum depression, I believe, held my mental issues in somewhat check. But it wasn't easy, and it was not without biting my tongue, so to speak, that I pressed on with the care of our baby. But when the physical burnout hit me, I simply wasn't able to fix things anymore. I could do nothing but lay in bed for weeks. You see, I had struggled all my adult life up to that point, trying to fix everything around me, using and stretching myself to the point of breaking. But when I finally was quiet and still, I started to hear God's voice. I started hearing a soft inner voice telling me that if I don't listen to Him now, He might not be able to reach me later. I had been so full of myself in all this stress and trauma that I had never fully stopped and put down my armor. During that year, when I basically could do nothing substantial by myself, I started to ask God, what do you want from my life? That question got even more prominent when I developed a lot of unpleasant symptoms, suggesting that I might have an autoimmune disease, causing inflammation and pain and malfunction in various parts of the body. I had done things my way up to that point during my adult life. I didn't resolve any of my problems, and it didn't resolve any other problems around me. And I really could see how my life at that point was completely out of my ability to fix. I had no other choice than to either give up on a bright, active and happy life, or trust that God could heal me. So in the tearful, quiet hours, I made a decision to cut off everything that was distracting me from reading the Bible and listening to that soft guiding voice. So I quit scrolling Facebook and YouTube. I stopped watching movies and television. I even started fasting to clear my mind. Now it sounds easy when I say it, but it was not. It was a struggle and a process. But what gave me strength to eventually do those changes was a deep longing to know God's will and to come really close to Him and learn to hear His voice. The Bible says that Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith. He sows the seed of faith in our heart, and if we let Him water the seed, it will spring up into a strong tree that is not shaken by the wind. Jesus healed me. He healed my anxiety, my panic attacks and depression. It all went away. And I started to wanting to live, and I saw how bright my future could be if I stayed close to Jesus. I even started to have therapy sessions with God where I would talk to Him about my life and He would answer me, revealing issues about my character and things about my life. And he would answer me and tell me what I needed to change. Layer by layer, he peels off the scar tissue of my past and the complexities of my trauma brain. They are slowly but steady being resolved, and still I stumble and fall, especially when things are brought to the surface in the process of healing, but I am healing. In the grace of God, of course. I know what it's like being in immense emotional darkness. When my anxiety and panic attacks have been at their worst, blood drops have started to be pressed out of the skin of my face. When I read the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, I get a glimpse of the anxiety and pain he endured. Though I will never ever experience anything as painful as he did, carrying the burden of all evil ever made since the time of our ancestors, but I still feel so deeply for him and what he went through. And then to think about how he would have done all of that, even if it was just for me, and not even mentioning the physiological abuse he went through and the torture done by the people, and of course the psychological abuse. I mean, wow. And still he was loving on them. I wouldn't want to be without my experiences. They have taught me about trusting God and understanding more about what he went through to save me. And all I want to do now is to give back to him. I have truly felt that he understands my hurt, and since he went victoriously through his pain, he can most definitely mentor me through the hardships of my life. He guides me into peace, he guides me into joy, whatever circumstances I'm facing. I don't always feel like joy and peace overflows me, but I trust that when I don't, there lies a blessing in disguise in the darkness, just as it did when Jesus died on the cross. Jesus can be your healer as well. I really encourage you to try him out. Invite him to show himself. Start reading the Gospel of John, for example, and ask God to guide your thoughts and feelings. He will do that. God promises in the Bible, "You will seek me and find me if you search for me with all your heart." He will meet you right where you are, if that is what you want. Trust that, no matter the circumstances.